with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Gil Duran, journalist based in California, proprietor of the website The Nerd Reich, co-writer of the Frame Lab newsletter on the AI coup and Trump's CEO dictator playbook. Also on the program today, White House found to fail complying the court order out of a federal court in Rhode Island to unfreeze the federal grants. Meanwhile, a federal judge in Boston extends the freeze on Trump's federal worker resignation scheme. Meanwhile, Trump fires the top government ethics czar, halts enforcement of a law banning bribery of foreign officials. The DOJ drops the case against Eric Adams, New York City mayor, incidentally, in what amounts to open blackmail. Trump, meanwhile, to rescind the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau protections on overdraft fees and medical debt showing up on your credit reports. 5,000 Oregon nurses reject a proposed contract from 7 hospitals. IRS agents recruited to work as ICE agents. Nice. They just need more people to harass more immigrants. Meanwhile, Speaker Johnson shopping a budget blueprint, but they can't find cuts to pay for the tax cuts they want for wealthy people. And too dumb to believe, Pete Hegseth revives the name Fort Bragg, but does so by naming it after a different Bragg.
What a troll.
Unbelievable. All this and much, much more in today's Majority Report. Meanwhile, also, we should say Amazon workers, 4,000 of them are voting until Friday on unionizing a North Carolina Amazon warehouse. We also have about 6 other stories about what's going on legally. I think we're going to have somebody on tomorrow to catalog all of them. Like literally, we're watching all of these federal judge rulings. And, oh, there she is.
Hello.
Hello, Emma.
Hello, Sam.
It's Tuesday.
And it's Newsday.
We have multiple federal rulings that the Trump administration seems to be just ignoring. And the question's going to be, what happens once these rulings are reiterated? We've seen a reiteration in Rhode Island, and then we move on to contempt. At one point, we're going to have a showdown. I haven't read a single thing that the Supreme Court is getting involved in at this juncture. It's unclear what's going on and or what's going to how this is going to go down one way or another. But I guess we will see. We'll get to the Fort Bragg stuff. It's just insanely stupid. Something's burning in here. I don't know if there's something that's not smelling right in here.
Oh.
We turn on the heat?
Check on my flat iron mat for my hair.
All right. I just want to make sure that we don't have to stop the show.
I thought I unplugged it.
Something is burning.
All right. I'm pretty sure I unplugged it. But anyway.
All right. Let's go to this. We get, yeah, okay. This story out of New York. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, obviously. And I hope we did get that Hakeem Jeffries presser. I don't know if it's. Did we cover that yesterday?
We did.
Okay.
We did. Very angrily.
Yeah, I was unhappy about that, but somebody just mentioned it. All right, so this news came down. There's always this old axiom, right? It's not the crime, it's the cover-up. And the Trump administration seemed to understand this in their first go-round. But they definitely understand it this time, because now what they do is they just commit the crime and they put a press release out about it. And nobody seems to have any idea as to like what to do about it. Because I honestly don't know. This Department of Justice memo dropped yesterday. And wait, before we put that up, we should also just say Eric Adams has been under federal investigation. I think there are at least 2 or 3 indictments on Adams, right? That deal with him taking improper payments from the government of Turkey.
Right, up to $100,000, and it was also in the form of flights all over the world on Turkish Airlines.
He just has a strong affinity for the country of Turkey, and it's reciprocal. And I mean, I think that's probably the tip of the iceberg of his corruption, but
it was so brazen that the DOJ was able to bring charges against him, right?
Oh yeah, and half of his administration, or 3/4, 7/8 of his administration when he started, has either resigned in fear of prosecution or are also being prosecuted. And so this has been looming over Eric Adams as we are having a mayor's race in New York City in November of this year. In fact, we had Zoran Mamdani on, I don't know, a month ago. One of the people running in the New York City primary, excellent candidate. I would recommend you check him out. And Eric Adams is running in this primary as well. But it's hard to run when you're under indictment like this, and no one really particularly seems to like Adams or to. What you don't see is a lot of people going like, "This guy's innocent. He's being railroaded."
Right.
It's just, I'm sure there are people who like Adams, but I've never heard anybody defend him publicly.
Even this memo doesn't defend him.
Well, it turns out that the Department of Justice has decided they're going to drop all the charges for the time being. This is a letter. It's a memo from the acting United States attorney to the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. This is the famed U.S. SDNY, Southern District of New York, U.S. Attorney. There's 4 districts of New York because it's big. And Southern District is supposedly one of the most independent and toughest prosecutorial agencies of the Department of Justice. You are directed to dismiss the pending charges in U.S. v. Adams as soon as practicable, subject to the following 3 conditions. 3 conditions. Defendant must agree in writing to dismissal without prejudice. What does that mean, without prejudice? If you have charges that are brought against you and they're dismissed with prejudice, that means those charges cannot be brought back. It means that it is prejudicial in the sense that it means that you've been really cleared. But without prejudice means we're not really adjudicating this matter. It's still an open question. This is important to keep in mind in a moment. 2, the defendant must agree in writing he's not a prevailing party under the Hyde Amendment. I'm not sure exactly what that's about. The matter, three, the matter...
it might have been the fact that was the Hyde Amendment included in the charges against him because of the corruption. That would make sense.
Maybe.
Okay.
The matter shall be reviewed and confirmed by the confirmed U.S. attorney. There is no confirmed U.S. attorney yet. Although she's going... Pam Bondi, I get... No, I'm sorry. Reviewed by the confirmed U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. So right now there's an acting director, or I guess U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, and they're going to confirm a new one soon. Now, following the November 2025 mayoral election, based upon all consideration of all relevant factors, including those set forth below. That's really important too. So in other words, we're going to wait. We're going to wait until after the mayor election, and we're going to wait until there's a new sitting Southern District of New York attorney to review the question of these charges and other relevant factors, in parentheses, including those set forth below.
And we'll get to that in a sec, but to note, in terms of the SDNY, they are, as you say, it's typically the most independent and the strongest, and like it's where Wall Street is, so they do some of those big cases. But the Trump administration is trying to change their independence in an unprecedented way, even more than the Bush administration, and is reportedly trying to stack this traditionally independent, well-funded office with loyalists too.
Okay, and I just want people to remember, including those factors set forth below. The DOJ has reached this conclusion without assessing the strength of the evidence of the legal theories or the legal theories on which this case is based, which are issues we defer to the U.S. Attorney's Office at this time. So in other words, we're not assessing whether there's a good case against this guy or not. We're not even looking at the evidence.
It's not our problem.
Not our problem. We're just putting this thing on ice until after the election.
Unless we want it to be.
And we just want to make sure it will be reevaluated based on consideration of all the relevant factors, including those set forth below. Well, let's look at these factors below. One, first, the timing of the charges and more recent public actions by former U.S. attorney responsible for initiating the case have threatened the integrity of the proceedings. It cannot be ignored that Mayor Adams criticized the prior administration's immigration policies before the charges were filed, and the former U.S. attorney's public actions created appearances of impropriety that implicate the concerns raised in the Attorney General's February 5th memo restoring the integrity and credibility of the Department of Justice. In other words, they're claiming, without evidence, we should say, that Adams was indicted and charged with these things because he didn't agree with Joe Biden's immigration policies.
And he did raise, issues because of some of the stunts that were pulled by Republican governors. But most of what I've heard about him complaining about Biden's immigration policies has been after the election, as he's been openly begging for a pardon, saying almost this exact same stuff on Tucker Carlson's show.
Second, so that's one factor, right? Remember, this is going to be reviewed based on the two factors below. First is that weird timing.
Appearance of impropriety, which the Trump administration hates those.
They hate those. And here's the second factor. Second, the pending prosecution has unduly restricted Mayor Adams' ability to devote full attention and resources to the illegal immigration and violent crime that escalated under the policies of the prior administration.
Violent crime went down last year.
Illegal immigration, at least in the last 6 months, was at levels that we haven't seen since 2019.
Yeah, it's all about vibes.
We are particularly concerned about the impact of the prosecution on Mayor Adams' ability to support critical, ongoing federal efforts to, quote, protect the American people from the disastrous effects of unlawful mass immigration and resettlement. So in other words, first off, we think that maybe the only reason why these charges came up was because he disagreed with Biden's immigration policy. And two, we're really worried that if we go ahead with this prosecution, Eric Adams won't be able to do what we want him to do with immigration. Now, I guess when we review this after the 25 election,
We'll see where we're at.
we'll see. Has the lack of a prosecution allowed Mayor Adams to do what we want? Because if it hasn't, then maybe we should just go ahead with the prosecution.
Because why not a pardon? He just blanket pardoned the January 6ers. If they, are convinced that this was a political process, by the way, the Biden DOJ also got a conviction in going after Menendez, who was another Democrat, but whatever. If they were so convinced, then they would pardon him. But that's not what this is for. They want to literally blackmail him into...
Whoa.
Hey.
Well, be careful of that word.
Oh.
What we're trying to do is assess whether he's more efficient in doing what we want him to do.
Talk about without prejudice.
If we don't prosecute him. If it looks like he's not efficient when he's not being prosecuted, we'll try the other way. Maybe he gets more efficient if we do prosecute him. It's
like
called government efficiency. Dougie is what we call it.
Sometimes liabilities become assets for the wrong type of
That's
person.
right. Like, you don't know. It's called A/B testing. That's what we're doing. It's like you A/B testing things. Let's try A. Are you going to do what we tell you to do when we don't prosecute you? Because if you don't, we're going to go to B and we're going to prosecute you if you not doing what we say.
I have a feeling that this administration places a high amount of value on blackmail material, and Pete Hegseth, I'm bringing him up just completely out of nowhere.
Here's the point. They are doing this completely in public.
Yeah.
The reason why they're doing this completely in public is if there was a backdoor call to Adams and said, hey, are you willing to play ball with us on immigration? Are you willing to allow ICE to come into the city and raid wherever they want? And we want your full cooperation. We want the New York City Police Department to function as essentially fluffers for ICE. We want them to give them, when ICE comes to town, we want New York City cops to close down the streets and barricade and surround whatever it is, whatever we want it from you. Are you willing to do that? Because if you are, we'll drop the charges. They know if they were to make that phone call, somebody would leak it and everybody would go to jail. But instead, they literally write it in a memo. They outline the whole thing there and everybody's just like, what?
Hey, it's on letterhead. How corrupt can it be?
It really is unbelievable. And I'll tell you, we will see in this city, New York City will not stand by idly and allow ICE to come in and run ramshack. And
Hochul should remove him. Hochul, she has the power, or she should at least look into it.
I don't think she has the power anymore.
We'll see. I mean, I guess if there's a letter asking for the dismissal, she should have done it before, because I am terrified for immigrants in this city. But I know that there will be solidarity actions. But if you are a DACA recipient or you don't necessarily have papers in New York City, just try to come up with some plans, because Adams is not going to protect you.
It's going to be interesting to watch New York City citizens F up ICE.
That will be fun.
All right. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Gil Duran, journalist based in California, proprietor of the website Nerd Reich, on the plan that does exist for what we're seeing. And part of it is Project 2025, but part of it is also from the PayPal mafia guru, guy named Curtis Yarvin, who he's talked about. And this guy, Gil Duran, has gone deep into Curtis Yarvinville. And we'll lay that out for us. First, couple words from our sponsor. Going online without ExpressVPN is like leaving your laptop unattended at the coffee shop while you run to the bathroom. Most of the time, you're going to probably be fine. But one of those days, you're going to come out of the bathroom. You go every day, and you come out of the bathroom, your laptop's gone. What do? I'd like to thank ExpressVPN for supporting the Majority Report. Here's the deal. Visit expressvpn.com/majority and you can get an extra 4 months free. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network, cafes, hotels, airports, I don't know, shopping malls, your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access and steal your personal data, passwords, bank logins, credit card details, whatever. Saul came to me the other day and we were getting on, I don't know where it was that we were getting on to the Wi-Fi. He's like, do you have your VPN on? I'm like, I do. What?
Wow.
How do you know this?
Oh my God.
And well, ironically, the copy says it doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack somebody. Just some cheap hardware is needed and a smart 12-year-old could do it.
Perfectly said.
Yep. Saul was right. Your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. Take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption, and 1 billion years, long time, just FYI. Here's the part that I really like. Saul might be able to figure out something a little more difficult, but for me, I like the fact that I can fire up the app, click one button, and I'm done. I'm completely protected. I'm not even aware it's happening. Works on all devices, phones, laptops, tablets, more. You can stay secure on the go. It's rated by the number one. It's rated number one by the top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. Again, this is super easy to do. Makes you feel. I would never, ever do any type of like business, or I'd never log into anything on. If like you're on an airport, any free Wi-Fi, you're asking for it. I'm convinced that like most of the places, people just hanging out fishing for this stuff. And they don't necessarily need to capture sensitive stuff, because when they sell any part of what you use for logons, other people go out there and aggregate it and start to create a profile from you. And that's when you get in trouble. So you can secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/majority. That's expressvpn.com/majority. You can get an extra 4 months free. expressvpn.com/majority. Lastly, today's episode also sponsored by Blue Land. I love this stuff. There are 5 billion plastic hand soap and cleaning bottles are thrown away each year. Most cleaning formulas are 90% water. So all of that plastic is completely ridiculous. It's heavy to ship. It leads to excessive carbon emissions. Plus, those products are often filled with nasty ingredients like chlorine and ammonia. It is a lose-lose situation for you, for the planet, for all other life forms on the planet. Blue Land is on a mission to eliminate single-use plastic by reinventing cleaning essentials to be better for you and the planet with the same powerful clean you're used to. The idea is simple. They offer refillable cleaning products, a beautiful cohesive design that looks great on your counter, but it's really super easy, and it's all color-coded, so you really, honestly, it never gets confusing. Everything comes in, the refills all come in like paper packaging. For your cleaning, you get like 3 cleaning bottles, a blue, a red, a yellow. The yellow is like the everything cleaner. The blue is like for windows, and the red is like bathroom, antibacterial stuff. You drop these tablets in, you fill them full of water, that's it. The tablets are cheap. Refills start at $2.25. You can set up a subscription or buy in bulk and give you extra savings. They have stuff like great dishwasher tablets. No more huge lugging of those, dishwasher jugs. Same with toilet blow cleaner and laundry tablets. All Blue Land products are made with clean ingredients you can feel good about. Blue Land is trusted in over 1 million homes, including mine. Honestly, just in terms of like safe saving and not having to shop as much and not having to throw out all these plastic jugs, it's fantastic. Blue Land has a special offer for listeners right now. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/majority. You don't want to miss this. Blueland.com/majority for 15% off. That's blueland.com/majority. 15% off. do yourself a favor. Order a big supply with that 15% off. You will not regret it. All right, quick break. When we come back, Gil Duran, a journalist based in California, proprietor of the website The Nerd Reich, co-writer of the Frame Lab newsletter on the AI coup and Trump's CEO dictator playbook. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Pleasure to welcome to the program Gil Duran, journalist based in California, proprietor of the website The Nerd Reich, co-writer of the Frame Lab newsletter. And Gil, welcome to the program. You've been following and really started to dive in very deeply into the ideology and practical blueprint that has been sort of been germinating almost now for a decade, maybe more. And we're starting to, we have seen this being now put into practice. Give us a broad overview of the work that you've been doing.
Well, last year I started looking into something called the network state, which is an ideology of tech supremacy that holds that tech CEOs should use their wealth and power in the 21st century to basically take control of the world. They believe that nation states and democracies are an outdated software for the planet, and that they should take over existing governments and hollow them out, or else start their own sovereign countries by taking territories around the world that they can buy with their vast wealth. As part of this ideology, they see a future in which nation states will collapse and democracies will be abandoned in favor of corporate dictatorships. And this is not something that I've dreamed up or found in a secret document. They write about this stuff in books. They talk about it on long podcasts. They make YouTube videos about it, you name it. They've been very, very loud about it, and no one was really taking them seriously. But I saw them getting very involved in trying to take over San Francisco city government. And after a certain while of watching them as editorial page editor of the San Francisco Examiner at the time, I started to realize there's something deeper going on here. And what I did was take the time to look into that. And the work I did for the New Republic was based in that research.
All right. To that point, let's just, because when you do articulate this, people are like, well, I mean, this sounds a little fantastical. We got a couple of clips that, we have been playing on this show over the past year, and just they're rather short, but I think it's important to show this because these are some of the wealthiest people in the country, if not the world. And they were all standing right behind Donald Trump on inaugural day, or just about. Here is first Palantir CEO Peter Thiel, maybe the ringleader of the PayPal mafia, as it's called sometimes. This is just him in April of 2024, just at a Mercatus Center event. Mercatus Center is the sort of libertarian think tank, or one of those. Here he is.
Sort of, one way to think of the Weimar period was, it's like the dwarves in Moria, where they dwelled too deep, and finally they awakened the nameless terror of the Balrog. But I think there are, and again, I don't think we're ever in a cyclical world, but there are certainly certain parallels in the U.S. in the 2020s to Germany in the 1920s, where liberalism is exhausted. One suspects that democracy, whatever that means, is exhausted, and we have to ask some questions very far outside the Overton window.
Okay, so there he is saying, like, we're like Weimar Germany, and democracy, whatever that means, has been exhausted. I want to get back, because that notion of, like, whatever democracy means, who could tell?
Nothing has meaning.
Is interesting. Now, for people who don't know any history after Weimar, we saw the rise of Nazism. And Overton window means, like, we got to widen the scope of what we contemplate as being normal. Here is Mark Andreessen, the guy who created Netscape, another tech billionaire. This is him on the Chris Williamson YouTube channel. This is where, and you will recognize this, Gil, from this guy obviously reads some Curtis Yarvin or talks to him directly, but here he is.
Talking about this too, right? Which is like, okay, how do we actually like redo the system is, of course, much harder. The other lens on this that I think about a lot is Curtis Yarvin, who's also a good friend of mine. And the way he describes the American system that's running the people, the way he describes it is we are living under FDR's personal monarchy 80 years later without FDR. Right. And the reason he describes it, he says, look, when before FDR, the federal government was actually very small. Like the tax rates were like super low. The federal government didn't do very much. The FDR dramatically, like orders of magnitude increased the size and scope of the federal government. He did that for two reasons. One was the New Deal, and then the other was World War II. And so the federal government that Franklin Roosevelt left behind in 1945 when he passed away was the government that he had built, which he had run the entire time from 1933 to 1945 himself, in which he had staffed himself and he had overseen himself and everything. And he built this giant structure. And as Curtis basically says, as long as you had FDR running that, it could run really well. And, we won World War II and saved the free world, and like it worked, and pulled the US out of depression, like the whole thing worked, and it was great. But if you let an organization of that size and scope run without its founder CEO for 80 years, you end up with what we have now, which is just like basically an out of control bureaucracy, like an out of control system.
All right. So I just wanted to lay that out. And there was also one where Andreessen, I think, was on Joe Rogan, basically saying that, FDR, Hitler, whatever, people were really in control of stuff. All right. So with that said, he cites Curtis Yarvin. Who is Curtis Yarvin?
Curtis Yarvin is a software programmer from San Francisco who in the early 2000s started writing a weird blog under the name Mencius Molebug. And in that blog, he outlined a lot of these ideas for getting rid of democracy in favor of a corporate monarch or dictator and running territories instead of by government, by corporation. For example, his idea for San Francisco was something called FriskCorp, which would be a corporate-run San Francisco where you need a special card to swipe it and swipe out. At every moment in FriskCorp, you're under constant and total surveillance. They know every single thing you're doing, even if you're in your house. And this is what guarantees the safety of the populace. Of course, he's only reinvented the totalitarian government of Orwell's 1984. But one thing you find with these guys is they think all the villains of science fiction and speculative fiction are the heroes, and they seek to emulate them. So I often hear from people that this is Snow Crash, this is Parable of the Sower, etc. They're all right. And that's the basic idea here. You get a lot of gobbledygook from guys who think they're really smart, but are actually saying really dumb and dangerous things, and now are sadly very close. They're in control of the federal government in Washington. And that's what's kind of shocking about it. When I started this work last year, I felt like a lot of people, even people I know in a long time, viewed it as sort of a conspiracy theory. And, if Kamala had won, I would look like a guy who had way overreacted to a few weirdos in tech. Even billionaires were criticizing me, saying, nobody takes these guys seriously. This is just a journalist trying to be in the New York Times someday. And I wish that had all been true, because what's happening now is even scarier and worse than I thought. And so Yarvin's idea is that Americans have to get over their dictator phobia, he said. And the way that we do that is by installing a CEO to be like the shadow president and to destroy American government from within through something he calls RAGE, R-A-G-E, retire all government employees. And that's very much what you see happening right now through DOGE, Doge, destruction of government by Elon, in Washington as we speak.
And
he lifted it.
I mean, honestly, I think it is. You were just ahead of the curve here. Here is New York Times' David Marchese interviewing Curtis Yarvin, and this is the longest interview I've seen with him, and it's about an hour long, and there's sort of two segments, and I was struck by how exactly what you're saying. It's a lot of gobbledygook, and this guy's not that bright. It's fascinating. He's asked, why do you think FDR was a dictator or a CEO or a king, whatever? They sort of, they play around with these terms as more or less the same type of thing. And he doesn't seem to really have an answer except for a strange anecdote. But let's just listen to this for a minute or two. This is Curtis Yarvin being interviewed at the New York Times. This came out about 3 weeks ago, I guess.
Know Mark Andreessen, and so I sent this piece to Mark Andreessen, and it's an excerpt from the diary of Harold Ickes, who's FDR's Secretary of the Interior. And it's a little diary entry describing a cabinet meeting in 1933. And what happens in this cabinet meeting is that Francis Perkins, who's the Secretary of Labor, comes in to this meeting and is like, here, I have a list of the projects that we're going to do. FDR personally takes this list, looks at the projects in New York, and it's like, this is crap, aren't you doing? Like, humiliates Francis Perkins in the Oval Office or wherever they're having their cabinet meeting. And then at the end of the thing, it's like everybody agrees that the bill will be fixed and then passed through Congress. This is just a picture of FDR acting like a CEO. And so, the question of, was FDR a dictator? What does it mean to be a dictator? What does this pejorative word mean? I don't know. What I know is that Americans of all stripes, Democrats, Republicans, and everyone, except for a few right-wing Republicans, basically revere FDR. And FDR ran the New Deal like a startup.
So,
okay.
As I understand,
okay. I don't know. I honestly,
like a startup.
I'm waiting. Like, what made FDR a dictator in your mind? And he was rude to Frances Perkins the first time she came in, and everybody liked FDR. He ran it like a startup.
Well, she was a DEI hire.
What's going on here? Like, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time, sort of diagnosing Curtis Yarvin. Although I did note that it seems like every reactionary wears a leather coat on some level. Like, it's their way of saying, I want to take us back to the 14th century, but I'm wearing a leather coat, so this has got to be all new and rebellious. But what? There doesn't seem to be a there.
Yeah, well, these are people who are used to talking in rooms where nobody challenges them. So your stupidity gets accepted and you get more competent in it. The other way to look at it is this is a disinformation for dumb people who don't know anything about what he's talking about. And so his cherry-picked anecdotes are used to convince all of these young wannabes in Silicon Valley that, oh, wow, it was a dictatorship, etc. There's one quote Yarvin has from a few years back where he says you can go into a bar and say, I think the British should have won the American Revolution. And people will say, yeah, that's cool. Well, try that shit in Boston or somewhere where actually people know about some of these things and see what happens in a bar. So this is a guy who's sort of making up this universe from cherry-picked anecdotes and trying to prove this point. I mean, if I worked in government, I come from government. I spent a lot of my career there. I worked for Governor Jerry Brown. I worked for Senator Dianne Feinstein when she was chair of the Intelligence Committee. I come from mainstream Democratic politics. I'm not on the far left. And everything in politics is a negotiation. Everything is a test of egos and wills. That's designed that way from the Greeks and the Romans. There's a long history of how this works. There are checks and balances. If Roosevelt had been a dictator, then why did we go and elect a bunch of Republicans who hated his whole project in intervening decades? I mean, it makes no sense, but it's not supposed to. We're not the audience for it. The audience is people who don't know history, who don't know what to think, and might fall prey and victim to this revisionist vision that is only designed to convince them that we're already in a dictatorship. It's just a matter of which dictator you want.
That's what Andreessen was basically saying. We've been living under a dictatorship without the dictator here, and that's why things are going awry on some level 90 years later. I mean, it's insane stuff, and I want to get to the plan. We got a lot of questions about that as well. But just one more thing that strikes me. Because you have delved into his writing, and from what I've read and heard from him speak, the fascinating thing is he is trying. When he responded later in that interview to like democracy, he defined it where you heard Peter Thiel say whatever that means. He defined it as, a desire for the common good, which is not what democracy is. Democracy is not about, I think everybody wants that, but democracy is about the participation in the decision making as opposed to a desire for what the ends is. And I want you to talk about how slippery they are about what democracy is. And because there seems to be, with this sort of cohort of conservative thought, the way they strip this, the way they lay this bare is it's all sort of like focused on some type of outcome. And they try and, flatten the differences.
Erase meaning.
Erase the meaning of everything prior to that on some level.
Yeah.
I would add also, he used an example, and I'm sure you've heard him say this, about if, why would we want, Apple's run by a CEO? Could California, the government agency of making computers, make an Apple computer? Of course not. But that's a very, very narrow, sort of like job assignment for government. It's not just we're going to make good computers. There's a whole host of addressing a bunch of different concerns, which is fundamentally about democracy. Will you just talk about that element of it?
Yeah, these guys only view reality through their own lens of tech and wealth and power. Having been in government, you have to view it through the eyes of vast constituencies of people, many of whom have different needs or may be at cross purposes. Politics is a tough art to master. A lot of good people fail at it. And so when they talk about things like democracy, et cetera, a lot of their problems could be cured by a poli-sci 101 class. The common good through history has come to be defined as something that the public must participate in defining. What they're trying to say is that, well, there were times where there were monarchs or there were dictators, and the common good was defined as whatever they decided it was. And, they claim things worked better or whatever under those systems, which I think history will prove that they don't. So all of this is pointed toward complete ignorance of actual history, of political theory, of how we got to the system that we have, toward a return to something that doesn't work, always gets overthrown, usually through violent revolution or war, and that would only benefit the richest guys in the room, which is them. So I think, if anybody who's familiar with the basics of political science can see the very juvenile and sophomoric mistakes they're making. But again, these are guys who don't get challenged in the rooms that they're in. And even when they get interviewed by, say, the New York Times, it's a pretty softball interview. This is a guy who's called for a dictatorship and laid out a plan that appears to be being followed. And he gets this glow up, black and white, smoldering photograph in the New York Times. This is a really bizarre time to be living in. You couldn't get these guys to cover this stuff before 3 days before the inauguration, they dropped the Yarvin interview. And believe me, I was talking to people and urging them to do this. And again, I was out there in weirdo land, and now we're all in weirdo land. So
yes,
but they covered Project 2025, right? And that I guess is like
Well, before we get to Project 2025, will you just lay out the plan for us? Because then I think it overlays over Project 2025.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the plan in the blueprint that Yarvin had? Well, in 2022, Yarvin updated his plan to a second Trump administration, and it's called the Butterfly Revolution. He did this on his Substack. And he said that the basic plan would be, and he said, this is all imaginary scenario, a harmless thought exercise. But the idea would be to install a CEO-style dictator while keeping Trump as the figurehead, to then purge career government employees, basically carry out rage, retire all government employees, to weaken these institutions, get rid of any people who are loyal to democracy, replace them with loyal ninjas who would answer to the CEO dictator, not to the democratic process or to Congress or anybody like that. Then start centralizing executive power under the executive branch, rebutting the courts, refusing to go along with the laws, just challenging every aspect of the system to break it. And then, and also bypassing congressional oversight, and then use this new centralized power to start seizing the other centers of power in society, media power, academia, establish complete control over the information sphere. Because in order to have this experiment last, you have to make sure it controls information, because it needs to control future elections. It does no good if in 2 years we get the Congress back, or in 4 years we get the White House back. So that was the scary vision he laid out in 2022. And as far as I can tell,
that sounds impossible.
Yeah, everything that Musk is doing, again, it could all be a vast coincidence. I'm a skeptical person myself. I'm a journalist. I come from mainstream politics, but it seems to me that they're doing everything on their list so far. And I've come to a point where I'm not going to underestimate these guys anymore. I am going to underestimate all of the people whose job it is to be telling people what's going on. I think if most of the American people knew what was happening right now, they would be very much against it. But no one is saying it.
That it's systemic. I mean, that's the thing, is that I think there's this sense out there that like stuff is happening willy-nilly, but this is part of a plan. But
no, I mean, that was my question. And it's really it's fascinating to see how this pairs with the lack of meaning that they're trying to engender. And the fact that these tech bros have control over our communications platforms, they're able to make that a reality. I mean, everybody's a blue check, and what information is true and what is not. I mean, I think I saw Yarvin saying that this is the prime opportunity for our plan to come into place, or go into place, because right now we're in a very irony-pilled or a high irony time, essentially saying that there's such little education that our ideas sound okay. I mean, it's the same with the anti-vax stuff. That's where we're at right now.
Definitely. Everything is considered negotiable, and there's no opposition that's organizing to really counter what these guys are doing. Instead, the Democratic Party's stance seems to be that, well, we're just going to let them do it as much bad stuff as possible, and everybody will be against it. We're starting to see some people stand up and resist it. We've got people like AOC and others. Jamie Raskin said the other day that they're trying to install a tech monarchy. People are creeping toward it. But I think what people need to understand is that this is not random chaos. This is a strategy. And it's a strategy they've been talking about and writing about and bragging about for years. And once you understand that, then it takes on a different meaning. You can make more sense of what's happening. And basically, we've got an unelected, foreign-born billionaire up in our government, destroying it and defying our laws. This is exactly the kind of nightmare our Constitution was designed to prevent. And we need to be very aware of that, because we can stop it, but not if we stay asleep for too long. These guys are trying to do as much damage as they can, as quickly as possible, because that's their key to keeping power. And I don't mean keeping power for 4 years. I mean keeping power in general. And to see the Democratic Party largely silent, to see the major media outlets not really getting it, is pretty scary. That to me is the scariest thing of all. People should, this is an advanced conversation. Catch up, get your pants on, get your boots on, and get out the door. It's time to go. And I don't really see that happening from the party that, again, I worked for very mainstream politicians for most of my career.
And so how does that work with Project 2025 then? They really meet together nicely, because it's both involves the dismantling of the administrative state, does it not?
Yeah, there does seem to be, back in September, there was a big conference in San Francisco called Reboot, which, by the way, is the name of the speech that Yarvin gave in 2012, where he called for the destruction of the federal government. And Reboot was a conference between the Silicon Valley tech types and the Heritage Foundation. And there was all these speeches, people from Anduril, Palantir, you name it, all coming together to talk. And I wrote a piece about it then. I'm like, well, this seems to be a convergence of the right-wing, far-right Republican sphere, the religious aspect of it, the religious zealots who want to impose a theocracy, the far-right tech guys, the Peter Thiel universe, Elon Musk's of the world, and MAGA, right? They're all kind of coming together. They have a lot of commonalities. There are some key differences, but a lot of commonalities. And I think the thing that I was trying to write about last year that I think a lot of the media missed was these guys have gotten together on a project here, and they're going to focus on their commonalities, destroy the government, shrink it down, privatize it, end rights for people of color, for women, etc. And they're going to focus on that for the next few years. So I think this convergence is something that was largely missed, but that was, again, happening in plain sight. The Heritage Foundation and the tech bros had a thing called Reboot in San Francisco in September, right? They were open about it. It wasn't a secret.
There's a real quality. This convergence reminds me of Paul Wolfowitz testifying in front of, I think, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee 20 some odd years ago, saying, weapons of mass destruction is what we could all agree on. And it brought in various disparate sort of constituencies to support the invasion and occupation of Iraq. It has that quality where, Russell Vogt, I don't think has these notions of a CEO, these sort of like futuristic visions. He just has a vision of a destroyed administrative state, which is sort of this sort of mechanism is a perfect overlay. Yarvin's, sort of like means to that end is a perfect overlay on Project 2025, it seems.
Yeah, I think what they share in common is a desire for a set hierarchy in the world. Men, white men, wealthy white men should be in control. Period. End of story. Men, wealthy, white, Christian men should be in control. Period. And, I do a lot of work with George Lakoff, the cognitive linguist who categorized many decades ago how the right-wing ideology works. And that's what they have in common, right? They have this, that's where their commonality is. Now, there are some differences when it comes to, for instance, God above man is a traditional conservative belief. Well, these tech guys don't really believe in God. I think they believe they are God. They believe they are creating God in the form of AI. And the only person who's outlining these very weird and bizarre beliefs of the Silicon Valley guys that are completely anathema to Republicans, to traditional Republicans, is Steve Bannon, unfortunately. He's been going to town, hitting them in all their weirdness and their bizarre beliefs and the danger they pose. And Democrats should really categorize all of his main arguments and start making ads based on those and targeting them at MAGA people and swing voters on YouTube, because only Steve Bannon is doing that work right now. And it saddens me to say that. I despise Steve Bannon. I do not view him as an ally. He just wants a different flavor of dictatorship. He has a personal beef against some of these guys. And he's saying, here's all the weird stuff that people should be talking about that are completely going to scare the hell out of MAGA.
I want to talk more about this, because this is something we've been observing. I guess it was about a month or so ago that Bannon came out and said, well, what are these three South Africans? He was talking about Sachs and Musk.
Thiel and Musk.
And Thiel. What are these three South Africans? They're all racist. What are they doing? Telling us what our government's going to be. And then he also seems to be backpedaling a little bit because he realizes, like, oh shoot, I lost that battle.
And in the New York Times, he was like throwing subtle shade at Musk, saying he's the Edison of our time. And if you're not familiar with like Tesla fanboys, that's a dig at Musk. But anyway,
where is the ideological split there between a Bannon and the, a Yarvin in that respect? And how does that play out? I mean, if we were going to start producing those ads or that content to show, as a wedge issue, I also despise Bannon. But where exactly is where is that wedge?
Well, I think first of all, I think what Bannon's trying to do is force a negotiation with these tech bros. He sees that Elon's coming. He's like, hey, I bought the Republican Party. I'm now the star of the show. I think Bannon understands that that's dangerous, that could turn people off. We already see Elon Musk's popularity plummeting in the polls with Republicans. It already is dead with Democrats for the most part. So Elon has a necessity of taking everything too far and not pacing himself at all. And so I think it's a negotiation. What Bannon has said is that, yeah, you deserve a place at the table. You spent all this money, and we could use that money to take over Europe and turn Europe fully right and have this global, right-wing project. But he wants him to not be at the head of the table, is what he has said. And so I think there's that tension. Part of it is that I think Bannon views himself as a populist, as someone who is representing his people, a mass of voters who have been with him on this journey to getting Trump to office. And I think he sees, he's jealous to some degree, perhaps, of the role that Elon has bought for himself. But also, I think he understands that Elon and these guys don't care what people think. They are not populists. They are anti-populists. They want to be dictators. They want to establish a system where the people do not have a voice. And that is a very dangerous project to push. So I think in a way that Bannon is trying to give some strategic advice here. Don't go full dictator in full view. You get a lot farther making things subtle in politics. You kind of want to boil the frog here. Start off slow and go up. What Musk is doing is throwing everybody into the boiling water all at once. And so that's how I view it. If you were to look at the thing that I think Bannon focuses on most, it's weird stuff like transhumanism, mating humans with machines, putting chips into people's brains, and this idea that AI will be God because apparently God doesn't already exist. And there are these cultural and religious issues that if you examine the beliefs of these tech guys are going to make, the grandmas and the MAGA grandpas out there think, who are these guys? Should I be supporting this? But no one's telling them that except for Steve Bannon, and he's even hedging because he doesn't want to be, I think it's a negotiation more than anything.
I mean, Yarvin's an atheist, right? And Thiel is godless. He's gay, right? Whatever. But I guess this is a good way, I think, to bring it back to the concept of the network state. And you bring up San Francisco a lot. I'm wondering if you view the origination of this idea and the fact that they're clearly sprinting to try to implement it, because there's been a lot of talk over the past few years about how crime is out of control, particularly in cities, when we know that crime has been declining since the spike in the pandemic. And you see the elevation on these platforms that are owned by these guys of highly racialized crime content as well. And when you hear about these efforts like Praxis and these other private city enterprises that these guys are investing in, it seems clear that they want to create private fiefdoms around the world, but now they're almost using this as an experiment with the entire United States. Like, do you see a connection between the elevation of this crime hysteria and panic on the right and an effort to privatize our public spaces?
Oh, definitely. They're trying to polarize public opinion across a range of issues, usually using the scapegoat tactic. Everything that's possibly wrong, even if it's actually not wrong or it's better than it used to be, is the fault of democratic governance, with a small d and a big D. And we have no choice except to throw out these progressives or Democrats who were ruining everything and replace them with people who were approved of by tech. We saw that with the LA fires, where it became a story framed around issues of DEI or democratic incompetence or water supplies that have nothing to do with the water in LA. They just kind of flexed their muscle there and showed how they'll get on TV and say that anything is about anything, and that'll get covered. That'll get repeated, whereas you didn't have Democrats on TV saying this is climate change and this is going to get worse and here's going to be our policy for dealing with it. Only the Republicans seem to be framing these things. And I started covering this in San Francisco because I thought last year this was a local story. This network state cult is going to try to take over the city government of San Francisco, a very liberal, progressive city on the West Coast, and go from there. That was what Gary Tan of Y Combinator, who's a part of the network state idea, said. If we can do it here, we can do it anywhere. What happened was that the collapse of the Biden campaign, plus the ascension of J.D. Vance to the ticket, opened up this opportunity to, instead of experimenting in San Francisco, and I thought, hey, I'll write a series that warns everybody these guys are going to do to the country what they're doing to San Francisco. Instead, they accelerated, to use one of their favorite words, to the national level now. And now we're all in it. So I did not foresee this happening this quickly. I thought maybe 4 to 10 years, we're going to see these tech guys taking over federal government. And so that's very much what we're going to see, a constant polarization and scapegoating. Who is the out group that everybody can be united against? And, so-called wokeism, DEI, anything progressive, which they depict as something all Democrats believe in, has become the scapegoat target for them.
So that's fascinating. They were about to do the 10x investment, and then they were like, wait a second, we've got 100x that just showed up for us. Talk about that in terms of Vance, because Elon Musk announced his he was going to do $45 million. It turned out to be about $300 million that we know of, like directly supporting Trump's campaign. right after Trump's assassination. But that was right when the Trump campaign knew that Vance was going to be the nominee. And was that basically like, was Vance essentially the signal to these tech bros, whether it's, Musk or the PayPal mafia, the Sachs, all of these guys that like, okay, Trump's bought into the plan now?
Yeah, I think Vance sealed the deal, right? J.D. Vance is a creation largely of Peter Thiel. At every step of the way, Peter Thiel has been there. Even when he wrote his book, it was while working for Peter Thiel in San Francisco.
Has he ever made professionally a dollar that wasn't from Peter Thiel money?
I think he did like less than a year at a law firm in Ohio before he moved out to California.
Okay,
but
fair.
he has been on the payroll for a very long time. Thiel got him elected to the Senate, and Thiel got him on the ticket because remember, J.D. Vance had compared Donald Trump to America's Hitler, called him all kinds of names, and he had to repair that damage, and he did. So when you can get a guy who called you Hitler on your ticket, something big has happened there. And that's when we saw this whole convergence. All the tech guys realized, again, here's a 100x opportunity to absolutely maximize and accelerate and take over the country instead of San Francisco. In fact, Gary Tan, who was here trying to mastermind this takeover, recently said, I'm going to spend less time on local politics. I'm going to Washington to focus on things there. And this is a guy who claims to be a Democrat, by the way. All Democrats are rushing to Washington to be a part of the exciting new era there, of course. But yeah, I think that's my view on what happened, is that they realized there was an opportunity to scale it much more quickly. And that explains the rush nature of it. But again, this isn't all happening. This is all happening so quickly that, I think people thought, well, how could they have planned it if it's all happening so quickly? But I just think that they move very, very fast. I think they're moving at the speed of AI and, in fact, trying to, feed everything through AI. And I think they just made a deal and they're running with it right now.
But that's Silicon Valley, to move fast and break things. So they're just taking that model to the U.S. government.
Move fast and break America.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about Trump's role, because, there was this idea, which I never bought. I mean, you don't show up with $300 million. Donald Trump, there was a lot of people saying that his ego is going to be hurt by Elon Musk. He's going to have a problem with Elon Musk running things. But I think the central sort of incentive structure that Donald Trump responds to is power and money and protection. And Elon Musk shows up, and this is a guy who's not only paid for Trump to be in office, but is now essentially the paid enforcer for everyone Trump is basically arranged now. And I think this was like a Russell Vote project from the Project 2025. I'm not going to have anybody in office, anybody who's working in my cabinet who's going to challenge me. And we're going to take out all the inspector generals. We're just going to have no friction there. And Musk is the guy who's in charge of making sure there's no friction in the Senate and the House. And he doesn't have to show up there. He just basically says, I'm bankrolling anybody who wants to run against any of these people who don't do what we say. Give me your sense of where Trump is in all this. Is he now just the chairman of the board and just sitting back and going this is great. I can golf more?
That's I think the basic idea, right? He's been paid off in his meme coin money. I'm sure there are many more scams being planned that will keep his pockets well lined with money through various tech ventures, enriching his family. This is a general autocratic model. The problem these guys have is that there is a cult of Trump that is very powerful. But Trump is 78 years old. He won't be around forever. How do you build what comes after Trump? I'm not sure that J.D. Vance has that charisma. He pulled pretty low. And so they have to find a way to keep Trump happy, because he's right now the power that they have. If Trump were to turn on them, it would be catastrophic. He still does have the power to get rid of them to some degree, though who knows now what leverage they might have given, how much money he's suddenly made off of tech ventures. But I think he's mostly the figurehead right now until something happens that forces Musk out of government. And even then, he can still exert a lot of control behind the scenes. What's surprising to me is that he insists on being in front of the camera right now. That's a very dangerous. People can burn out on you pretty fast. The pendulum tends to swing. People don't want what they wanted a few months ago or a few weeks ago. So I think right now we're in a situation where Trump is a wholly captured subsidiary of these Silicon Valley guys, whether you want to call them the network state or something else. It's all the same idea, a tech authoritarianism. And so basically they acquired MAGA. And that's what Bannon is complaining about. These guys think they bought the MAGA movement, and now Musk is going to be the head of it. But there are some pretty serious complications there, one of them being that Musk is foreign-born, though I wouldn't be surprised to see some sycophantic Republican introducing a bill to allow foreign-born billionaires to run for president someday. I mean, we haven't seen anything yet in terms of what they're going to try.
Well, there's another problem that Musk has, and that is a total lack of charisma. I mean, and I'm not being, sort of like glib with this. Like, if you wanted to go back, you often have authoritarians. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't seem too sort of direct comparison, but you have authoritarians who match up with business interests. These authoritarians will often either have the plan themselves and the sort of like charismatic appeal, or they could outsource it like Trump has in many respects, either to the Heritage Foundation or to, the reboot sort of like coalition, as it were. But they don't have anybody for that charisma. They've been operating in, they got 2 years. And then, maybe the Democrats take the House. But none of this seems to be playing out on a legislative field for the most part. What do they do, in 3 years or 4 years, assuming Trump doesn't run again?
Yeah, that's the problem they have to figure out. And I think, I'm not very religious myself, but it does seem like the good Lord has taken away the tongues of these men. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, they can't give a speech to save their lives. And it's a big advantage we have. So we need the people who are powerful speakers on the Democratic side of the spectrum to get out there and frame this and to challenge these people. You can't put Peter Thiel or Elon Musk on the stage with an articulate and smart person. They'll look like they'll melt. They can't speak. And so the way they express their power in other dangerous ways. And I think that's a great advantage that we have right now. This is largely right now a communications war about defining for people what is happening and what they can do about it. We still have a lot of power. Their plan depends on people being complacent and people not realizing what's going on until the last minute. And we do have to build toward 2026. These guys can be defeated. They want us to feel like they can't. They want us to feel like they're all powerful, but they're very vulnerable right now. And you have to remember that there's a very serious thing to try to destroy the government of the United States of America. And there will be accountability one day, but only if we wake up and start fighting it right now. I've heard from some people in the Democratic establishment, some big donors who are like, this is not the time to do this. And I'm like, absolutely wrong. The time actually was last year.
Yes.
We should have had a plan for this. You have to have a plan for losing, even in a low-level campaign.
That's what I want to ask you. I mean, this is a perfect segue into that. One, it's one thing. Okay, our plan to deal with this is to have Kamala Harris win. But then, on November 8th, you're like, okay, we got 3 months. It doesn't feel like. It feels like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer woke up yesterday, and we're like, wait, what's going on? And I mean, you were in Democratic politics. You worked, establishment Democrats. What is your assessment of the way that they've been responding? Because I looked at a speech from Hakeem Jeffries yesterday when he was talking, saying we don't have any leverage, and ostensibly he's talking about reconciliation. And I'm like, this is a speech that could have been given. This is a press conference that could have been given at literally any other time when Democrats didn't have the House. How is what's going on now not fundamentally unique and deserving of a different response?
Democrats don't understand the role of morality in politics. What we have right now is moral leverage. Our government is under attack. Our Constitution is under attack. These institutions, sacred institutions that every American, whether you're on the right or the left, has been taught are important, are foundational to who we are as a people, are being destroyed. And you have to talk about it in that way. And instead, I think what's happening is you've got all these Democrats chasing that billionaire tech money. Hey, we'll make a deal. Hey, we'll give you what you want. We'll just not do it in that way. And I think what we're seeing is that Silicon Valley and capitalism in general are very open to authoritarianism if it's in their best interests. You know, where are all the corporate leaders standing up to say this is wrong, to say we're not going to go along with this? Everyone is just complying. And so we're learning a lot right now about the role of billionaires in our society, about the cowardice of our establishment leaders and corporations. And I think that in my optimistic hope is that we'll come out of this era understanding the dangers that were created when we allowed these situations to get out of control and to challenge the very moral foundations of our entire country, our entire reason for being. And I think that unless we seize that moral high ground and start talking directly about the morality of it, we're going to lose. And I think there's time to change that reality. But again, this idea that of begging crypto and other people to do the right thing, they're not going to do the right thing. They think this is the right thing.
Yeah.
And we have to tell people that's what they believe, because if they start getting unpopular, if there is unrest, if the polls show a massive dramatic shift, these guys are going to get scared. Remember, these billionaires, these tech companies, these corporations, they're cowards. They're going to shift to where the population shifts. We have to shift the population, and rapidly.
Is that where you see their vulnerability? Is that there is a populist, an economic populist resent that can be flamed?
Yeah, Americans deciding they don't want to live under this corporate dictatorship, that they're not ready for the Constitution and democracy to end because of one election. Right. I think people aren't telling anybody that. Instead, they see their leaders meeting with Silicon Valley guys saying everything's going to be OK. We're going to find a way to reconcile and kind of go along with most of it. And what you have here is the Overton window being shifted all the way to the extremist authoritarian right. And the Democratic Party is going to be what the centrist Republicans were a few years ago. You know, what's the political theory here? And I think a lot of these guys are maybe scared. These leaders, I saw someone saying they're getting death threats, etc. But if you're not willing to die for your country, don't put your hand up and take that oath. You know, that's supposed to mean something.
Yeah. I mean, and Sam Altman went on TV, I guess it was a few hours ago, and was making fun of Elon Musk because, you know what? He's mad that he's not getting in on the looting of the federal government. That's what he wants. And he's not in the in crowd because they hate each other. But and I wonder if that's who Hakeem Jeffries was meeting with and speaking to, by the way. But like you've talked a little bit about crypto and its role in this kind of anarcho-capitalist tech vision. Crypto was supposed to be outside of fiat currency. That was its initial selling point. But a lot of these guys got in super early and hold a ton of cryptocurrency. There's discussions about putting our payment system on the blockchain. Like, what does crypto mean in this context? And what are some of the potential outcomes that could be very terrifying if they actually get their way and incorporate crypto and this kind of speculation into our government?
Definitely. Crypto is about money, and money is about power. And remember, their goal is to control the centers of power and information: government, police forces, media, academia, religion, and money. And their stated goal is to replace existing institutions and things with parallel versions, new versions that serve the interests of these tech guys. And so I think a key part of this whole plan is to replace the dollar's power in the world with the power of crypto, in particular Bitcoin. Balaji Srinivasan, a former Andreessen employee and Thiel associate, a guy who Musk regularly interacts with on Twitter, has been very explicit about this. It's about going to a Bitcoin standard, which would make all of these guys fabulously wealthy and put them in control of a great deal of monetary policy. And so I think, Doge says it best. You're coupling the destruction of government with a crypto coin. that has gained a lot because of Musk's antics. That's kind of, in a way, a perfect expression of what's going on here. And I think we're going to see nonstop crypto scams and crypto moves. AI and crypto are the two main technologies by which these guys see the future being controlled. And so we're going to see this massive rush to control AI, to control crypto. And if you can combine those in the American government somehow, then you also have one of the most powerful governments in the world at the helm of that experiment. And, I don't have every particular detail there. There's some good writing coming out from other writers. I posted an essay today on the Nerd Reich by a writer going into what all of the AI stuff means. And it's an AI coup is what Eric Salvaggio calls it. So there are other people who are really tuning into some of these details, and I think it's great. And but that's what it's about. It's about controlling the technologies that will allow them to have more wealth and more power. And crypto is at the heart of this. Crypto spent a lot of money in these elections to take out Democrats or to put in place crypto-friendly Democrats. Any politician taking money for crypto or speaking well of crypto is one of the bad guys, just to be clear, I think, at this day and age.
Yes.
Agreed. All right. Lastly, and thank you for indulging us for so long, but this is really fascinating. I think very important stuff. When you're looking out 30, 60, 90 days, maybe even 180 days, like what's next? What's the next phase? It feels like, I have no doubt that Musk's people still have access to all this stuff. It's just a question of whether their access is going to be illicit after agreed upon as being illicit. Like at this point, it's illicit. We don't know what's going to happen at one point when they keep ignoring what judges are telling them to do and not do. We're going to get to that inflection point. What do you anticipate happening at that inflection point? And then what happens after that, regardless of how that sort of like one source of friction plays out? Because I'm convinced that I for whatever reason, I don't have trust that the 20-year-old named Big Balls or whatever the guy's name is, has been like, okay, I won't put some type of backdoor tunnel into this system or whatever it is. I just find it hard to believe they're like, well, that would be a bridge too far to go. But assuming like we have what society has agreed is illicit and what they can do and then what they're going to do, and one implicates the other. But what do you anticipate over the sort of the near to midterm?
Well, they're going to go one by one, seizing power and destroying different institutions of government. I think the major thing we're going to see emerge, and we've seen this a bit already with the USAID conversation, is the rising of these new conspiracy theories and false narratives based on, oh, look what we discovered was actually happening behind the scenes. A whole information stream designed to use the government to undermine people's faith in the government and to say the government has been doing all these bad secret things, maybe even stealing elections, and now we're going to put a stop to that. So I think you're going to see them use whatever power they have to start defining narratives, like the Twitter files, right? Ostensibly based on the information we now have access to, and it's going to just pump all of these right-wing anti-government memes into the mainstream. And so I think that's the main thing to look out for. The creation of unreality and making sure that people can't discern fact from fiction is very crucial to any fascist or authoritarian regime. And so they're going to turn the jets on for that. There's going to be a direct stream from the conspiracy theorists in our federal government to all of their media organs, and people are not going to know what to believe. And they're going to think that, wow, something really bad was happening, and it's good that we have this dictatorship in place to clean this all up. That's what they're going for, in my opinion, based on my observation of them so far.
Lavojado, I guess, on some level.
Yeah.
Any?
No. It's pretty bleak, but Gil, your work is awesome. People really should check you out on Ghost.
We will put a link to. We will put
not the third.
The Nerd Reich.
Nerd Reich. There we go.
We'll put a link to Nerd Reich at majority.fm and in the podcast and YouTube description. Gil would love to check in with you in a couple of months to see. If it's going to be allowed 6 months from now, would love to check back in with you. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Went a little long.
I knew we would. Yeah, the destruction of all meaning is I feel like with what does democracy mean? What does dictator mean? FDR was a dictator. Just, muck to throw out there.
You should have seen how he behaved with Francis Perkins. He was definitely a dictator.
Right.
That's a fascinating response by a guy who self-proclaimed intellectual. Incidentally, Curtis Yarvin.
He's more like a guru. He is more like a guru for the tech guys, where they don't have any spirituality. They believe AI is God, and so what do they look for spiritual guidance? The guy that says that everything they're doing is good because they're creating God, and then they can be little monarchs themselves.
And he's wearing a leather coat. He probably drives a motorcycle. So this is the sort of like and
he's such a
neo-reactionary playbook.
They love the secrecy of it too. Like he was saying in that New York Times interview, I didn't even go to the inauguration. Okay, it's been widely reported that he went to a bunch of parties for the inauguration. What does that matter? You're only putting that out there if you're trying to like almost wink and a nod. You are the person that's influencing.
I would recommend this interview that he did with the Times 3 weeks ago, only because there's this sort of like, he's riding this line between not wanting to expose too much of his ideas, but also wanting to get the fame associated with it. It is fascinating.
He looks
to
like
watch.
a Simpsons character.
It really is a fascinating interview to watch. And
check out, if you want more from Gil, we got this guest in part because Crystal Ball recommended it to me. Wanted to give her props for that. So Crystal and Kyle did an interview for their show on Friday, or it came out on Friday with Gil. So check that out over on their channel.
We should look into also this reboot thing in September, because that's obviously like where the nexus happened. The Project 2025, yes,
yeah,
and that's the who knows what was going on in those. They love to party. All right, we're going to take a quick break and head into the fun half. The number 646-257-3920 is the number. You can support this show by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, but you also can IM us in the fun half. And I promise you, we'll take phone calls today. Not that many, but we'll try that. What do you mean? I love Frances Perkins was a woman, Sam. I knew that. She's from Worcester. What do you mean? I don't know who Frances Perkins is?
That's why I said DEI hire. Frances Perkins will have
Why
her
do people
revenge
keep
on
saying
Seattle.
Frances Perkins? First of all, it's not how you spell her name. Second of all, I know she was a woman. I know she went to classical high in Worcester.
Yeah.
People are saying that's the dictator part, is putting a woman in her place.
I know. I love that was the example.
What more do you need to know?
Duh.
First off, that may have happened in her first meeting with FDR. But FDR gave her a lot of leeway.
In his startup?
Yeah, in his startup, as it were. Like,
they're so stupid.
It's fascinating.
But like, it's a perfect...
I'm a founder.
Yeah,
and I didn't say Frances Perkins was a man earlier.
You said she. Okay. This is not important. Doesn't this fit so neat? This is why all these tech guys are going on Rogan. This is why they're all going there. They fit perfectly. Everything is like, Rogan has done a ton over the past few years with his elevation of conspiracy theories and anti-vax material to basically strip meaning and facts out of a lot of people's media diet. I mean, he's one of the biggest podcasts in the entire world. And I know that there were alarm bells about this during the first Trump administration. I felt like, all right, this is a bit overblown. People, it's almost talking down to voters. They'll have the ability to make these discernments, but I think I underestimated the level of like manipulation with these algorithms. We're at a really scary point right now where there's no
it's
ability.
Also a different era.
It's a different era. It's gotten much worse.
Yeah.
It's gotten much. But Cambridge Analytica, that model is now being multiplied. They were able to get away with it, and all these tech guys are getting in on basically taking people's private data and selling it to other brokers so that, as Cambridge Analytica bragged about, they can create a perfect tailor-made profile for a political campaign that fits into like what reactionary sentiment is going to be, and they're going to have an advantage on that front, the Republicans, of getting people's personal data.
Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee.
They're coming for us.
And hot chocolate. Coupon code majority gets 10% off. And no, Texas left. I did not know Frances Perkins. She lived 100 years before me, practically. Well, actually less.
You could have overlapped.
Emma.
ESPN yesterday, we obviously recapped the Super Bowl. I got mad at all this Mahomes slander. He is now
He looked trash. I don't watch football, but Jalen Hurts looked like definitely the better quarterback to me.
Matt.
Just the eye test. I don't know. Maybe there's other metrics or something.
The eye test. Anyway, the got me mad
also,
again.
People say he's hotter.
Well, that's true. But basically, he's 3-2 in his first 5 Super Bowls, much like Tom Brady. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
Yeah, Sam's gonna. Oh, are you coughing? Should I take? Oh, I thought you were jumping off the screen because you're gonna cough. Never mind. Yeah, tonight, big show, Left Reckoning. Do you want me to take you out this night?
What happened?
I'm gonna put Emma up because Sam's distracting me.
Oh. What for?
I thought I was raising my tissue to I'm getting over a cold. Go ahead.
Edward and Ben of the Philly Whole Foods workers, David and I talked with them this morning. Really interesting to talk about them. They organized a victory 130-100 in their workplace. And now the Bezos and co are saying that doesn't count because the NLRB is being unconstitutional. And how could we know how to certify that stuff? We talk about why that's BS. More importantly, they said they're fans of Left Reckoning and this program, and even back to the Michael Brooks show, which I will say is basically like a high octane gas put in my tank whenever I hear that from people actually doing work like that. So really great to hear. Also, Kylie Chung, staff writer of Jezebel, who probably has an article in our packet once a day about the assault on women's reproductive health, also joining us. So a big full show tonight, patreon.com/leftreckoning.
See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us
this? Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs that look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych,
And the alpha males are back, 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 back. And the Africans are black, 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 black African. And the alpha males are black, 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 black. And the Africans are back, 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 back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back, back. Africans are black, black. Alpha males are black, black. Africans are back, back.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.